Look at your own home. When a light bulb burns out or a water pipe bursts, what do? If you are a wealthy person, busy earning thousands of dollars every hour, you certainly will not climb a ladder or crawl into a sewer yourself. You hire a contractor. But would you hire your neighbor, who is just as rich as you, to do the job? No way. He would demand a sky-high price because his time is just as precious as yours. Instead, you look for laborers from the countryside, those who are willing to do the job for the price of your breakfast. You are happy because your house is fixed cheaply, and the worker is happy because he earns money to send back home. This is exactly the microcosm of the global economy today. Do not be deluded by fancy concepts like international cooperation or job opportunities. The naked truth of labor export and import boils down to one word: profit. Rich countries do not open their borders out of kindness. They open them because they need cheap energy batteries to run a giant economic machine that the natives are too refined to touch. Many people often mistakenly believe that developed countries are bestowing a favor when they accept workers from poorer nations. This is a fatal naivety. Look at the most basic law of supply and demand. In countries like Japan, South Korea, or regions like North America and Western Europe, the population is aging rapidly. The youth there are born into luxury, educated to be engineers, doctors, or to work in air-conditioned offices. None of them want to shovel cow dung, clean public toilets, or stand on a freezing fish processing line for 12 hours straight. If forced to hire locals for these jobs, employers would have to pay astronomical wages to compensate for the hardship and the blow to one's pride. When labor costs rise, the price of a bunch of vegetables, a piece of meat, or service fees will skyrocket. Inflation would explode. To keep prices stable and the lives of the local middle class comfortable, they are forced to find another supply source. That is when migrant labor enters the game as a cheap and essential commodity. This mechanism operates based on the difference in living standards, or to put it bluntly, the difference in exchange rates. This is the addictive drug that makes millions of people accept leaving their homeland. 1 hour of washing dishes in a rich country can equal a whole week of hard work back home. Big bosses grasp this psychology extremely firmly. They know that just paying a minimum wage by their standards, a level that locals consider an insult, is already a fortune to a poor laborer. This gap is the massive profit margin. Instead of investing millions of dollars in robots or complex automated lines to harvest produce, they simply hire an army of manual labor. Humans are more flexible than machines, cheaper than machines, and most importantly, when broken or when the work ends, they can be fired immediately without maintenance costs. Let us dive deeper into the cost equation to see its ruthlessness yet efficiency. When a wealthy nation imports an adult worker, they are cheating a massive amount of money. How much does society spend to raise a child from birth to age 18? Consider the healthcare, education, housing, and social subsidies. The poor nation has borne the entire cost of producing that human being. By the time that person is at their healthiest and most vigorous, they go to the rich country to dedicate their labor. The rich country does not spend a single cent to raise them, but enjoys the full benefit of their prime years. When these workers grow old, fall ill, or their contracts expire, they are sent back to the poor country. At this point, the burden of healthcare and social welfare falls back onto the shoulders of the poor nation. The rich country only skims the finest cream off the top, pushing back the dregs and the bones. This is a hyper-profitable business deal that no accounting book records in detail as human depreciation costs. Furthermore, the status of migrant workers is always placed in a weak position, which is something bosses dearly love. If a local is forced to work unpaid overtime, they will sue, the union will step in, and the press will speak up. But what about a migrant worker? They are tied to a visa. That passage document is often linked to the employer. Losing a job means deportation, which means the debt taken to go abroad for labor becomes a death sentence. This fear is the most effective human resource management tool. It makes workers docile, obedient, and willing to accept harsh working conditions without daring to utter a word. The bosses know full well that if you do not do it, there are thousands of others lining up waiting. The oversupply of labor from poor countries has stripped workers of their bargaining power. Look at the construction and agriculture industries to see the real picture. The glittering skyscrapers in the Middle East or the vast farms in Europe were not built by the hands of the locals. The locals work in offices, designing blueprints on computers. Who are the ones pouring sweat mixing concrete under the 50°C sun or bending their backs picking strawberries in the bone-chilling cold? They are the people from the lowlands of the global economy. Without this force, housing prices would double and food prices would be so expensive that the locals would protest. The governments of rich countries know this, so even if they shout slogans about protecting local jobs to win votes, they still leave the back door open for the flow of cheap labor to pour in. They need this lifeblood so the economy does not suffer a stroke due to excessively high operating costs. Another aspect few people notice is the stimulation of domestic consumption. Workers abroad do not just work, they have to live. They must rent rooms, buy food, buy clothes, and pay consumption taxes. A portion of the wages they earn flows right back into the pockets of real estate moguls and supermarkets in the host country. Many people even get caught up in the consumerist lifestyle of the rich country, buying expensive phones and branded clothes to compensate for their hardships. As a result, the actual amount sent back home is eroded. The big bosses win twice, first by buying cheap labor, and second, by reclaiming part of those wages through the expensive living costs that the workers are forced to pay. This is a closed loop of cash flow that workers often do not realize until their contract ends with very little capital. It does not stop at manual labor, as this trend of buying cheap is spreading to skilled professions. Programmers, nurses, and caregivers from developing countries are also being imported in droves. Why pay $100,000 for a local engineer when you can hire an engineer from another country with equivalent skills who only asks for $60,000? Under the guise of attracting global talent, the essence remains payroll cost optimization. This creates tremendous competitive pressure, forcing even local workers to lower their expectations or work more. Ultimately, the only beneficiaries are still the bosses, those who hold the means of production and the power to hire. However, it is also necessary to recognize fairly that this is a symbiotic relationship, albeit an unequal one. For workers from poor countries, despite being exploited, the money they earn remains their only chance to change their lives. Back home, they might be unemployed or work tirelessly all year just to have enough to eat. Going to a rich country, they sell their health to buy a future for their children and build a decent house. It is a calculated trade-off. The problem lies in the fact that many workers do not understand the rules of the game. They go with the mindset of a job seeker, not the mindset of a seller. They let emotions dominate, are easily deceived by the promises of brokers, and have no clear financial plan to maximize the period they sell themselves in a foreign land. The biggest trap of this game is the erosion of health and youth. Labor is an asset that depreciates very quickly. After 5 or 10 years of heavy labor abroad, many return with a worn-out body, full of occupational diseases. If the money earned is not preserved and invested, it will quickly vanish into medical bills or building large but empty houses. At that point, they realize they have sold their most precious things, time and health, for a price that seemed high but was actually dirt cheap. They helped the rich country build infrastructure, care for their elderly, and enrich their economy. But they themselves have no pension or insurance from those years of dedication. So, what is the path for those who are or will be participating in this game? The answer lies in being sober-minded and pragmatic. Never believe sweet words about paradise. View working abroad as a fair economic transaction. You are selling a commodity, which is your labor. Sell it to the highest bidder and under the safest possible conditions. Before leaving, you must understand the law, your rights, and especially the language. Language is the only weapon that keeps you from being turned into a silent machine. When you understand the language, you understand the law, and only then do you have a chance to negotiate or at least protect yourself from excessive exploitation. Next, define a clear goal. Go to earn capital and knowledge, not to be a slave for life. Live frugally, but not to the point of destroying your health, which is your only capital. Do not indulge in senseless entertainment or shopping to keep up with the neighbors in a foreign land. Remember, every cent you spend in a rich country means you are returning profit to them. Transfer money back and invest in income-generating assets in your homeland. More important than money, learn how they work, learn the processes, and learn management skills. Those are the intangible assets that no one can steal when you return. If you only bring back money, the money will run out. If you bring back the mindset of an owner, you can escape the fate of a hired hand. Finally, understand that this world operates according to the laws of the strong and the wealthy. Rich countries and big bosses will always find ways to optimize profit by buying cheap labor. That is the nature of capitalism, and it cannot be changed overnight. Instead of sitting there complaining about injustice or waiting for pity, turn yourself into a more valuable link. If you are forced to sell your labor, sell it wisely. Do not let yourself be just a single-use battery to be discarded. Use that time spent selling your labor to fully charge yourself with knowledge and capital so that one day you are no longer the one building houses for others, but can build your own empire. That is the sweetest and most realistic revenge in this cruel game.